Hello everyone, this is Julie, and this is take two of chapter one of my new endeavor on YouTube. I say take two because I recorded a video a little bit earlier only to realize that I was speaking so fast and I was mumbling a little bit, so I was actually really hard to understand, even for myself. So I thought I better slow down and record that one again because otherwise no one is going to be having a clue about what I'm trying to say here. But that's pretty typical for me. I think if I get a little bit nervous or excited, I start speaking really fast. So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm forcing myself to speak slower and hopefully more clearly. Anyway, what is this all about? So, as you may have noticed, I've called my channel 40 going on 20. I know it's a bit tacky, but I thought this is kind of self-explanatory. I have indeed just turned 40, well, a few months ago in April. Well, I guess I'm being hit full on by the midlife crisis. I know it's a cliche. I don't think I'm necessarily having a midlife crisis, more, I guess, a life questioning slash transformation phase. That's what I'm going through. And so the purpose of this channel is to document more for myself, really. I'm doing it for myself. If anyone ever watches this video, hopefully you find it interesting slash fun slash maybe something that you can relate to and you're like, oh, I'm going through the same thing. But yeah, I just wanted to document that process because I think that's, very therapeutic. Even just talking now to no one in particular, I find that kind of freeing. So a bit of background about me. I'm French, but I've lived in Ireland on and off for about 14 years. I've lived in the US in that time frame for almost 4 years, but I've been back for about 3 years. Have two kids, a 3 years old, 1 year old, and a great life partner who I love very much. So I hadn't thought much about turning 40. I have a few friends who had turned 40 before me. So I was kind of already in that zone, I guess, and I hadn't really thought about it for myself. I was like, whatever. I don't know why everyone's getting so worried about that, number. It's just a number. I feel the same. It's not going to change anything in my day to day. So let's just get over it. You can have a nice, good old party, and that's it. And until my life partner, I think the day before I turned 40, was like, are you okay? Are you not, feeling a bit weird about turning 40 tomorrow? And I was like, well, I wasn't even thinking about it until you mentioned it now. So now I guess I have to feel worried about it. But anyway, it's definitely not his fault. I just kind of started thinking and I was like, okay, well, maybe now is a good time for reflection. What do I want, to do with my life? So, there were a few things I think that were already in the workings, I guess, without me really dedicating too much time to thinking about those. First of all, because I just had a baby, I was like, oh, I'm so unfit. I need to go back to working out, but I don't really find the time and I just can't keep going. I want to be fit and I want to live as healthily and as long as possible to be there for my kids. The second piece that I had been thinking about was to start therapy. And that's just something that I had wanted to do for a long time because I felt like there was a few things that I needed to kind of figure out for myself. And I have figured, well, after 40 years of life, there's probably a lot of things to unpack that could be helpful. I was having lots of anxiety and I just didn't want to keep going like that. I needed, to find a way to cope with those. And the third thing that I kind of wanted to finally do something about was I have a lot of kind of business ideas that I never do anything about. It's all in my head and I always come up with what I think are great ideas, but then nothing happens about them, which, I think I'm working now part-time, but I was working full-time up until I came back from maternity leave. So it's just hard to find the time. And I thought, now that I work 4 days a week, Friday being my day off is going to be my day. So anyway, when I started therapy a few months ago before going back to work, my therapist kind of like poked fun at me and say, oh, well, it looks like you turned 40 and now you have like, you're putting together a big program, a life program for yourself. And I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of it. I'm taking responsibility. Yes, I'm putting a life program for myself. Why not? But anyway, that process has been actually super helpful, the process of therapy. I had a few friends who have been going through therapy for a while, and if they've found it really helpful and life-changing. So that's one thing that I'm really happy I started. I've had a few breakthroughs that have been really helpful just to understand kind of like my own patterns, like just getting to know myself better and figuring out why, I'm the way I am, and what, are my strengths and my kind of like Achilles heel, and what are some of the blockers. And that's already helped, bring to light a lot of stuff. So I've really been enjoying this process. It's an expensive one, especially when you start, you have to form a habit. So you're going every week, the same day, the same time. And yeah, therapy is expensive, but I find it's really worth it for me now. That's, something I'm happy to spend money on. And then the second piece, which was getting fit, I told myself again on that like sudden midlife crisis on the day before my 40th, I was like, oh gosh, I need to get fit. I want to be, this year is going to be when I'm the fittest ever in my life. And actually, I'm pretty happy about the way that's going. I've started working out pretty much as soon as I decided it. I joined a program that's very good. It's holistic. It's about nutrition. It's strength training with not one-on-one coaching, but small group coaching. They're very encouraging. And 3 times a week. The only way that I managed to make it work is to go in the morning at 6:30 before kind of like the kids wake up. I'm lucky because my partner is here. He can look after them, and then I can just come back home, help him, and then we just bring them to crash. So that's working out well. I'm really happy. That's really given good results. So it's obviously motivating to keep going. And it just set me up for the day. I feel so much better when I've worked out. And then the third pillar was, I don't want to say set up my business, because I feel like I'm so far away from setting up any form of business, but just taking some of those ideas that have like stuck with me. Like there's some ideas where, one day I think they're genius, and the next day I'm like, what was that? That's never going to work. Like, drop it. Which sometimes is also an excuse for me to not get started. But sometimes it's true. I'm like, I don't know why I thought it was a good idea yesterday. But some of them have stuck with me, and I'm like, I want to do something about it. Even if it's just fleshing out the idea itself, like just drawing stuff on the board, trying to put together a very scrappy business plan. What could that look like if ever that was to become something? But just getting started, that's kind of like the main thing. And somehow up until now, I haven't dedicated the time to do that, even though it's something that I feel very strongly about. I feel it's in me and I want to try it, even though realistically it's probably going to fail. First businesses often fail because you don't have the knowledge of all the constraints, all the potential roadblocks that are going to come your way. You're not prepared for them. You just have to learn on the job and learn from your mistake to make it better next time. So you have to get started. You have to obviously kind of, I think, figure out the level of risk that you want to take, both financially and, other risks that you may take in the business, right? It's just like the idea of failure can seem very scary. With that, so as part of kind of like the business endeavor, I guess what I wanted to do was to also document the journey I'm going through, because so I feel like this kind of vlogging project is going to focus more on that third pillar of fulfilling my, I guess, professional aspirations, let's put it that way. Less so on the lifestyle change, working out, therapy. There's more that I'm also kind of like getting into in this life program. I will probably talk about it from time to time, because I think it's part of who I am, right? It's probably going to impact the way that I do things. But what I think is going to be most helpful, both for me because I want to document this journey, but also maybe for someone else out there, is what is the process? Like, what does it look like if you're like literally, you have a day-to-day job, or you don't, maybe you stay at home or whatever, but you want to start something, like you have some entrepreneurial, vibe in you that you want to let out, and you're like, I want to create something. I feel like I could be my own boss. That could be a business. How do you even start? Because I listen to a lot of podcasts. There's this great podcast called Second Life, hosted by Hilary Kerr. She is the co-founder of Who What Where, which is this like big lifestyle website, and she kind of talks to women so it's called Second Life, meaning that women who have had a career in a field and then they kind of pivoted and did something completely different, what that process looked like. There's also a lot of resources online, for women entrepreneurs, and even, funding, opportunities for great ideas, driven by women. But I feel like a lot of the time it's women who have already kind of reached their goal, even if they always, I think once you reach it, you want to go to the next goal, right? But it's I guess people who've already made it. So it's great as an inspiration, and I just love listening to those women talking, and like the hurdles that they had to go through and the rough times, but how they learned from that and they picked themselves back up, and then kind of like saw the light at the end of the tunnel with all their hard work. It's inspiring, but then I'm like, okay, but they're already there, but like I want to understand exactly on the day-to-day what that meant. And I mean, most of the time it takes years, right? So I don't know how long this process is going to take for me. Maybe I'll still be vlogging in 10 years trying to get these ideas off the ground. Who knows? But I think it's helpful to kind of actually know what it looks like, I guess, in real time and in real life, from people who have no past entrepreneurial experience, who are not there yet. So they're not related to something from the past and now they get here, but they're actually trying to go from now to their future self, if that makes sense. So there might be some content out there on YouTube already that are similar to this. So if you see this video, you're like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this vlogger who's also kind of like on that same journey. Please let me know, comment, because I would love to connect with, other women who are going through the same. I think it could be such a great community, basically, to be, somewhat at the same kind of like, stage in your professional like life journey. But yeah, so far I just didn't really find anything like that. So I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to start it really for myself. And if it's helpful for someone else, or if people find it interesting, then great. I don't like, for this particular video that I'm doing right now, I honestly, I don't have a script. I'm just winging it. I just wanted to say what I have to say, and no particular structure, but I'm gonna try and think about a structure going forward. I'm gonna try and post. I'm aiming for 1 week, because Friday is really the only day that I'm gonna have time to do that. It's not gonna look anything super edited or pretty, because I just have to kind of put this in the few hours I have on a Friday afternoon. And it's also gonna depend, the content is gonna depend on what I've been able to achieve in each week that I'm kind of like reporting on. So hopefully it won't be too boring. There may be some weeks where I'll be like, well, this week I've done nothing whatsoever for my business idea, but maybe there's something else that came up, and that's interesting. I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm doing this for myself, and I think maybe a few years time I can look back on it. Hopefully it'll be something fun to watch, and especially if I've progressed since then, it'd be kind of like fun to go back to that and see how it all started. So I think that's it for today. I will see you next week. Thank you for watching, and thanks for having watched those 15 minutes. That was a pretty long, winded way of explaining what I'm trying to do here. But hopefully see you next time. Bye.